Hi everyone, we would be starting your confidence interval discussion for your engineering data analysis. So here is our chapter outline. So we would be discussing confidence intervals for mean, large samples, small samples, for population proportions, and for variance and standard deviations. So let's start off with confidence intervals for mean, large samples. So here are your objectives. So actually, basically, if you have gotten to understand how to do the large sample, the next confidence interval, halimbawa, for small samples, proportions are, the process is almost the same. Okay, so it just uses different tables, but the process is the same. Okay, so let's start with our large sample. So normally, when we are actually asked for our opinion, we always have this estimates. Okay, when we say estimates, these are your guesses, intelligent guesses, something like that, with reference to the item that is being asked to you. So normally, when you are being asked of your estimate, especially for engineers, so we are asked for our what do we call that? Our some sort, or we normally reply in intervals. I guess the proportion should be. I mean, I guess the number of, or the volume should be in between 20 to 30, something like that, because we cannot directly say that, or we cannot be sure whenever, I mean, we cannot always be 100% sure about something. That's why we tend to, whenever we're asked about estimates, we tend to actually provide an interval. Okay, so that estimate, the perfect estimate, is what we are referring to as the point estimate. Okay, so say for example, you would be able to really pinpoint a certain estimate. Okay, that point estimate is actually equal to your mean. Okay, so your mean would be the same formula as you have before. That would be summation of x over n. Okay, supposing we have this problem. So we have here social networking website allows its users to add friends, send messages, and update personal profiles. The following represents random sample of number of friends for 40 users of the website. Find the point estimate of the population. Okay, so first off, let's have our calculator. Okay, so our mini calculator. I can enlarge this, but it would cover up our data, so I'll just settle to that. Okay, so we'll be using this, and I'll be using the stat function of your calculator. So let's input this number. Okay, so I will be inputting this. That's 140, 105, 130, 97, 80, 165, 232. Let me just encode this. I will pause the recording so that I would be able to record all of this. I'll be back with the fully encoded data. Okay, so I have now completed in encoding this data. Okay, so I would now be getting the summation of x using the stat function. Okay, so in the formula of your mean is actually equal your summation of x over n. Okay, where n is 40 and your summation of x would be, I will be clicking AC, okay, AC, shift 1, then 3. You will see here summation of x squared, summation of x. I'm after summation of x lang. So that would be 5232. Okay, 5232. Okay, so AC again. So 5232 over 40 is equal to 130.8. Okay, 130.8. Okay, so that's your point estimate for that problem. Okay, so therefore you can actually say that the mean the mean number of friends for the 40 users of the website would be 131, almost 131. Okay, so you can also make use of this one. Also have this function that directly solves your mean. I guess it's here. Okay, so that's number 2. So that's 130.8, which is the same as what we have computed in here. Okay, so next. Okay, so as I've mentioned a while ago, normally when you're talking about your estimate, normally you are actually stating it in intervals. So meaning for you to have some sort of an allowance in case you committed the error. Okay, so you have here your interval, or you would be providing an interval rather than pinpointing that, okay, I'm sure that's 130.8, but how can you be sure that's 130.8? Okay, so that our methodology when it comes to providing our estimates, we are enclosing it into an interval. Wherein this interval actually represents, or most probably your point estimate is within that interval. Okay, so that is interval estimates. So interval estimates are actually dependent to the level of confidence, C. So, or confidence level, or alpha for some. Okay? The probability that the interval estimate contains the population parameter. So, if you're given the confidence, so normally that's in the middle, and then what's left, i-divide nyo lang sa 2. Halimbawa, this is 95%. What's left is 5%. So, 5% over 2 is 0.025, 0.25, okay, or 0.025, 0.025. Okay, so yun yung value nitong dalawang to. Okay, so if in case lang hahanapin nyo siya sa table, because we would still be using the standard normal table for finding the corresponding z-scores in here. That is why it's essential. It's essential na alam nyo yung value ng inyong confidence estimate or level of confidence. So, kaya, normally, iisa yan, nagiging positive, negative lang. Pag nakuha mo na yung kabilang side, ipapositive mo lang dito sa kabilang side na to. So, yun lang naman yung K-level of confidence. Okay. So, example this one. So, supposing you have 90% confidence level. So, C is equal to 0.9. Ang natitira ay 0.9. 1 minus 0.9 ay 1. 0.1. So, 0.1. So, 0.1 over 2 ay 0.05. Okay? So, kaya 0.05 ang values dito. So, yung 0.05 na yan ay hahanapin nyo sa table. Same process nung before. Hahanapin nyo sa table. Sa Z table, since the population here is greater than 30. Okay? So, at pag tinignan nyo yun sa Z table, makikita nyo itong value ng 1.645 na 5%. So, this is negative 1.645 and this is positive 1.645. So, the corresponding Z scores are these. Okay? So, next. Okay. So, sampling error. So the difference between the point estimate and the actual population parameter. For mean, population mean, the sampling error is the distance between the sample mean at saka population mean, or x bar minus mu, wherein mu is generally unknown, x bar varies from sample to sample. So next is the margin of error. Margin of error is the greatest possible distance between the point estimate and the value of the parameter it is estimated. Okay, so this is denoted by E, which is equal to your ZC, standard deviation of x bar, which is equal to ZC multiplied by standard deviation over square root of n. Okay, so again, this applies if in case your population is greater than or equal to 30, which is considered as large samples. Okay, so we can now proceed with this example. Okay, so we have this example. Supposing we use the social networking website data, the one we actually solved a while ago. Okay, and a 95% confidence level to find the margin of error for the mean number of friends for all users of the website. Assume the sample standard deviation is about 53. Okay, so since given naman daw yung ating confidence level 95%. Okay, so we can actually draw a normal distribution chart na hindi perfect, okay lang. Okay, so supposing we have here 0.95. Okay, so this is 0.95. So, and 1 minus 0.95 is 0.05. So, 0.05 over 2, para mag-two-tailed, ang area dito ay 0.025. Okay, so this area is 0.025, and this area is 0.025. Okay, so we can now proceed with looking at the value of 0.025 in our table, Z table. Let me just show you the table. So we have here the table. So as stated a while ago, we are actually looking for an area that would represent 0.025. Okay, 0.025. The Z value with an area of 0.025. So let's check all the values in here. So this is your standard normal Z table, negative. Okay, this is positive. Okay, so let's check for the 0.025, 0.01, 09, 0.0021, 02, 02, 4, this one. Okay, so we have here saktong 0.025. Ang Z value is negative 1.96. Okay, so that's negative 1.96. Okay, so I would just be placing it here. That's negative 1.96. So as stated a while ago, since normal distribution naman siya, yung kabilang side, positive lang. So positive 1.96. Okay? So next, so since na-identify na natin yung Z value natin, so we can now approximate the distribution of the sample means with normal curve using the central limit theorem. So we can now find the margin of error. So using the formula that is stated in here. Okay? So gagamitin natin itong formulang to dahil given naman din si population standard deviation. Okay, so let's use that formula. So we have E, okay, is equal to ZC standard deviation over square root of n. Okay, here Z is actually 1.96. times, okay, that's the value of your standard deviation. Standard deviation is equal to 53, and your square root of n is 40. Where do I get the 40? This is the same example as what we what we solved a while ago. So that has 40 numbers inside. So that's square root of n. So using the calculator, here's my calculator. There. Using the calculator, you have 1.96 times, oops, 96 times 53 over square root of 4. That was 16.4. Okay? So, lagay lang natin siya, 16.4. 16.4. So, therefore, since ang problem natin ay inward, so therefore, we are 95, sige, yun na lang. You are 95% confident that the margin of error for the population is 16.4, friends. Okay? So, yun lang naman yung hiningi niya. Find the margin of error. Okay? Yun lang yung hiningi, kaya yun lang yung binigay natin. Okay? So, again, this is your margin of error for the mean number of friends for all users. Okay? So, next. A confidence interval for the population mean is actually equal to your mean minus and plus your estimate. Kaya we actually have heard or we have learned first how to compute for the E because that is what we are going to use to establish our intervals. Okay, so the probability that a confidence interval contains U is C. Okay, so in summary, these are the steps for constructing confidence interval for population mean. So first off, find the sample statistics n and x, okay, or x bar, sorry, mean. Then specify the standard deviation. Otherwise, if n is greater than or equal to 30, find the sample standard deviation s. Kung sakali lang nawala. Okay? And then, find a critical value JC that corresponds to given level of confidence, which is what we did. We checked the standard normal table. Next, find the margin of error using the formula E is equal to JC multiplied by standard deviation over square root of n. And then find the left and right endpoints by subtracting and adding the mean to the endpoints that is found on step 4. Let's have this example. So, supposing we are asked to construct a 95% confidence interval for the mean number of friends for all users of the website. So, since we already have, I guess, I just have to go back kung ano ang naging mean natin kasi I somewhat forgot. I'll just go back kung ano ang nakuha nating mean. Our mean is 130.8. Okay, so I would be injecting it here. X bar is 130.8. Okay, and the value of E that we solved a while ago is 16 point something. 16.4. 16.4. Okay, so therefore, para makuha natin ang left, okay, endpoint, so we have X bar minus E, which is equal to 130.8 minus 16.4. Then for the right endpoint, That's x bar plus e. Okay, so that's 130.8 plus 16.4. Okay, so using the calculator, okay, so that would be 130.8 minus 16.4. Oops, decimal. That's 14.4. Okay, and then, palitan lang natin ng plus. P147.2. Okay, so we can now say that this is the interval of, or at 95%, with 95% confidence, you can say that the population mean number of friends would be in between 114.4 and 147.2. Okay, so again, the interpretation would be with 95% confidence, you can say that the population mean is in between 114 in bit 114.4 to and na lang 147.2. Okay, so as you can see here, I am translating the answer since our problem asks us in words. So therefore, dapat sagutin natin sila in words. Okay, so that's what we are doing in statistics, diba? We are actually trying to solve a problem for them, for our customers. So, tendency is they're giving it to us verbally. So, therefore, yung interpretation yung sagot actually in reality. Okay? So, okay. So, next. Next is this problem. Okay. Supposing we have here a college admissions director wishes to estimate the mean age of all students currently enrolled. In a random sample of 20 students, the mean age is found to be 22.9 years. From the past studies, the standard deviation is known to be 1.5 years. The population is normally distributed. Construct a 90% confidence interval of the population mean age. So, confidence interval daw ang gagawin natin. So let's start by getting the givens. Okay, so we have here the confidence interval, C. I'll just include it here para medyo. Okay, so C is 0.9. Okay, and then N is equal to 20. X bar 22.9 and standard deviation 1.5 years. Okay. So, first off, let's get the Z value because we'll be using that. I'll be making use of this space kasi kakaunti lang yung space. Okay. So, supposing 90%. So, this is 0.9. Okay. So, 1 minus 0.9 ay 0.1. Okay. 0.1 over 2 ay 0.05. So, this area here is 0.05 and this area here is 0.05. So, looking at our table, okay, let's try to look 0.05. On our table, we have 0.0548. So, ito na yan. Okay, so we've known na 1.645 ang katumbas no 1.05 as seen in here. Okay, so 1.645. So normally, dun lang naman madalas nagre-range yung mga values ng C. Madalas 0.95, 0.9, okay? So yun, medyo gigimay, I mean medyo pwede nyo nang sauluhin yung values. Okay, so let's get back to it. So 1.645, negative 1.645, and positive 1.645. Okay, so since we're okay with the value of Z, we can now compute for the value of our E. Okay, so value of our E would be, based sa formula, E is equal to ZC over square root of N. Our ZC is 1.645 times standard deviation of 1.5 over square root of 20. Okay? So that would be equal to, calculator, so that's 1.645 times 1.5 square root of 20. Okay, that's 0.55, 0.5517. Okay, that's the value of your E. Okay, so since we have here the mean, we can now compute for the confidence interval at 90%. No. Okay, so the left and right. Okay, so diretso ko na, right? Okay, diretso ko na. So that's 22.9 minus 0.5517. So that would be, and then ito 22.9 plus 0.5517. Use our calculator. Saan yung calculator? Point 5517. 22.3483. Ay, sorry. Mean pala to. Population. Tapos, plus. 23.4517. Okay, so this would be your interval. So therefore, upon seeing this, we can now conclude. Okay, so with 90% confidence, we can say that the mean age of all students is in between 22.3483 and 23.4517. Okay, or parang 22 to 24 almost, kung gusto nyong mag-exact. Pero let's give them the benefit of rounding that off. Pero sa atin, tayo in decimal. So as you can see, I've been using 4 decimal places para safe. I mean, para in case lang. Halimbawa, pag probability kasi, at least may matitirang dalawang decimal places if in case siya ay i-convert to percentage. So, safe naman yun kung sakali mag 4 decimal places na lang din kayo. Okay? Next. Wala, may space pala ako. Okay. Interpreting the results. So, mean is a fixed number. It's either in the confidence interval or not. So, What's not right is there is 90% probability that the actual mean is in the interval. Okay, what's right is like what we have been doing in concluding. So if a large number of samples would be collected, confidence interval is created for each sample. Approximately 90% of these intervals will contain the mean or the mean that you have computed. Okay, so the horizontal segments represents the 90% confidence interval for different samples of the same size. So as you can see here, yung kinompute yung interval kanina, halimbawa, ito yung minimum, ito yung maximum. Okay? So, nag-range dyan yung value, yung point estimate ninyo. Okay? So, again, that's how you would be interpreting your results for your confidence interval. Okay. Sample size. In case lang, so given a C confidence level and the margin of error E, in case you would be asked of the minimum sample size N, because we have previously stated that the more samples, the better. Okay? But if you would want to have something reliable, okay, you can actually compute for the sample size needed to estimate the population mu using this formula. Okay, so that's N is equal to ZC, standard deviation, over E squared. Okay, so let's try to use that formula. Okay, so we have here our formula. So, our problem. You want to estimate the mean number of friends for all the users of the website. How many users must be included in the sample if you want to be 95% confident that the sample mean is within 7 friends of the population. Assume sample standard deviation is about 53.0. Okay, so first off, let's identify the value for the Z. Okay, so that's 95%. This is 0.95. Okay, so what's left is 1 minus 0.95. Hope you're seeing it. Oops, hindi na pala kasha. 1 minus 0.95 ay 0.05. Okay, 1 minus 95 ay 0.05. So, 0.05 over 2 is 0.025. Okay? So, since 0.025 yung values nito, okay, 0.025, 0.025. So, we can now refer this to the one that we found out kanina. Na pag 0.025 ang area, ang value ng Z ay positive, negative, 1.96. So, you can verify, recheck that. Pero, medyo sa ulo ko na kasi lagi nga, may mga common talaga na Z values. Okay? So, there. So, since identified na natin kung ano ang value ng Z natin, pwede na natin compute si N. Okay? Which is what is being asked. How many users? So, N is equal to ZC. Okay, what's the formula? ZC multiplied by standard deviation over E squared. Okay, value of Z ay 1.96 times standard deviation of 53 okay, over E, which is, what's the value of E? Computer ba natin ito kanina? 7 friends, within 7 friends. So, 7. Okay? So, that would be 1.96 squared yan. Times 53, 7 squared. That's 220. Okay? So, 220.23. Or they have to sample dahil wala namang half na tao. Okay? So, at least 221 users must be in the sample to be 95% confident. Confident. Okay, so 221 yung susurveyan mo. Kung yan yung na-compute ninyong value. Okay, so let's check the next one. Okay, so this is the summary. So we already found the point estimate and how to compute for the margin of error, constructed and interpreted confidence interval, and determine the minimum sample size required for estimating them. So as stated a while ago, almost the same lang naman yung process na gagawin natin. Okay? But we would be using a different table for the small samples. So it's considered to be small samples if the n is actually less than 30. So again, pagka equal or greater than large sample, Z table ang gagamitin. Okay? So we have here the t distribution. So it's like the Z. Yung Z is equal to x bar minus mu over n na ginagamit natin for Z. Pero sa atin, for t distribution, if you identify that your sample size is less than 30, you have here x bar minus mu over s over square root of n. Okay, so this will be the critical values for t, which is denoted by TC. Okay, so properties of t distribution. T distribution is also bell-shaped and symmetric about the mean, parang Z, pero small values lang. T distribution is a family of curves, each determined by a parameter called degrees of freedom, wherein your degrees of freedom are actually the number of free choices left after a sample statistic such as x bar is calculated. This is calculated as df is equal to n minus 1. So the total area of a t-curve is also 1 or 100%. The mean, median, mode of the t-distribution are equal to 0, same as with z. And as the degrees of freedom increases, the t-distribution approaches the normal distribution. So after 30 degrees of freedom, the t-distribution is actually considered as a normal distribution. So z na siya. Okay? So, example this one, find the critical value of TC for a 95% confidence level when sample size is 15. So, again, hindi pwedeng diretsong n. Okay, kailangan n minus 1. So, df is n minus 1, 14. 14, hanapin nyo siya dito, df. Pababa yung df. And then, yung 95%. So, since 95, pwede nyo tignan yung level of confidence. But in actual, ito yung itsura ng table. Ayan. So, one-tailed, two-tailed. Normally, hindi nakalagay yung confidence level kagaya nung nakita nyo kanina dun sa table example. Okay? But, madali naman siyang tignan kasi kahit ang tignan nyo ay two-tail. Okay, two-tail na 0.05. Okay, 0.05 kasi 0.95, 1 minus 0.95 ay 0.05. So, 0.05 na two-tailed ang pinag-uusapan natin. Or kung gusto niyo one-tailed, 0.025 dito, 0.025 dito. Okay, same lang naman yan. Okay, so ang hahanapin nyo, 14 na degrees of freedom, 14, at saka itong either 0.025 or 0.05. 0.05 kung gusto nyo tignan ng two-tailed. Okay, so 14, that's 2.145. So, yan yung value na nakalagay dun sa inyong screen, sa inyong presentation. Okay? So, next. So, 95% of the area under this t-distribution curve is with 14 degrees of freedom lies between positive, negative, 2.145. Okay? So, for C confidence interval for population, it has the same formula. So, same naman. Pati yung TC lang. Tapos, sample standard deviation lang yung gamit. Okay, tapos square root of n. Tapos, same lang naman din. So, in summary, identify the sample statistics. Identify degrees of freedom. Find the margin of error. TC S over square root of n. And find the left and right endpoints. So, let's have this problem. So, we randomly selected 16 coffee shops and measured the temperature of coffee sold at each. Okay, so the sample mean temperature is 162 degree Fahrenheit with a sample standard deviation of 10 degree Fahrenheit. Find the 95% confidence interval for the population mean temperature. Assume the temperature is approximately normally distributed. Okay, so we have here 16 coffee shops now. So, since our number here is actually less than 30, so, and our population standard deviation is also unknown, okay, we can use the t-distribution, okay, and the temperatures can be referred to as normally distributed kasi given naman sa sample standard deviation. Okay, so we can actually make use of this data by using the small samples or getting the interval for small samples. Okay, so first off, identify muna natin yung givens. So, givens. So, we have here n. N is equal to 16. Other givens, sample mean is 162. Okay, and sample standard deviation, 10 degree Fahrenheit. Okay, tapos C is equal to 0.95. Okay, at 0.95. Find the 95%. Assume temperatures are normally distributed. Okay, so since sinabi naman, assume that it is normally distributed, so kailangan daw natin makuha tong 0.95. And it wasn't the same kasi small samples to, so we're not using the 1.645 supposedly. Okay, we would be checking kung ano yung value sa t-distribution ng anong value. So, 0.95, 1 minus 0.95 ay 0.05. So, 0.05, two-tailed ang hanapin natin. Okay, so ang DF natin, identify natin yung DF kasi kailangan ng DF. So, 16 minus 1, 15. So, therefore, ang hahanapin natin sa table ay 15 at saka two-tailed na 0.05. Okay? Check natin siya sa table. Okay. 15.05? 0.025. 0.05. 15.05. That's 2.131. Positive, negative, 2.131. So, let me just get back. So, this is 2.131 saka 2.131. Okay? So, those are our values. So, next, we can now proceed with solving our margin of error. Okay? So, margin of error, here na ako magsusolve. Kaunti na lang naman. Okay? So, that's TC, which is 2.131 multiplied by standard deviation over square root of n. Okay, so that's 2.131 is 10 over square root of 16. Okay, that would be equal to, calculator ko na lang para mabilis. I mean, normal calculator. 5.32. 5.3275. Okay. So, for our interval, same process. So, we have here the mean of 162. For the left, we have 162 minus 5.3275. The right is 162 plus 5.3275. Okay. So, equals 156.6725 degree Fahrenheit plus 167.67 0.3275 degree Fahrenheit. So, therefore, we can say that at 90, ilan siya? 95. Okay, so with 95% na confidence, we can say that the mean population or the population temperature for coffee sold is in between 156.6725 degree Fahrenheit and 167.3275 degree Fahrenheit. Okay? So again, that's how you would be solving for that problem. So almost the same. Again, if you come to get the first part, the next parts would be easy. Kasi same lang sila ng process. Different tables lang yung ginagamit. Actually, same goes with the others. Yung mga next discussions natin, same lang din. Same na, pag nakuha nyo yung large samples, easy na yung mga next chapters or next parts. So, if in case malilito kayo kung normal or t-distribution, check nyo yung sample size. So, if it's less than 30, you can get you have also to check kung population is normally or approximately normally distributed. Pag hindi, you cannot use the normal distribution or the t-distribution. So you can actually identify na okay, it's not for t-distribution or hindi siya normal distribution. So hindi siya solvable. Since hindi pa naman na-discuss sa inyo yung ganung part. Okay, for higher level stat na yun. Okay, next, identify the population standard deviation. So if in case known siya, ito yung formula na gagamitin nyo. If in case hindi siya known, okay, so ito yung formula na gagamitin nyo. So with n minus 1 degrees of freedom. Okay. So, this one, you randomly select 25 newly constructed houses. The sample mean construction cost is 181,000 and the population standard deviation is 28,000. Assuming construction costs are normally distributed, should you use the normal distribution, the t-distribution, or neither? So, since okay naman, less than, pero the population standard deviation is known. Okay? So that's $28,000. So therefore, we have to use normal distribution for this problem. Again, this one is normal distribution. Okay? So in summary, we have interpreted t-distribution and used t-distribution table, constructed confidence interval when n is less than 30. Next, confidence intervals for population proportions. So we have here our objectives. So I would go out with the calculator, ha? Okay, kasi medyo matatagalan tayo dahil sa pagka-calculator doon. Okay, so let's start. So, proportion, when we're talking about proportion, it's like percentage, okay? So, probability of success in a single trial of a binomial experiment. This is normally denoted by P, wherein ang kabaliktaran niya ay Q, okay? So, for proportion, we are referring to proportion as P hat, which is equal to the X over N, where X is the number of successes in the sample and N is the sample size. So, again, for point estimate for population, kung si large ay si mean, sample mean, okay, ito naman si P hat ang ating point estimate. Okay, so for Q hat, 1 minus P hat lang yan. Okay, so we have here the example. Okay, so supposing we have this one. Oops, nagahang na ako. Okay, supposing we have this one in a survey, 1,000 US adults. 662 said that it is acceptable to check personal email while at work. Find the point estimate for the population proportion of the US adults who say it is acceptable to check personal email while at work. Okay, so population proportion lang naman ang hinihingi yan o yung PHAT. Okay, so therefore, kailangan natin kunin yung probability of success at saka N. Okay, kasi ang formula nga ng inyong PHAT ay X over N. Okay, where X is the probability of success, sorry, tuloy, and N is your number of samples. So, 662 ang nagsabing yes over 1,000. Okay, so that would be 662 over 1,000. Calculator ko ng manual, that's 0.662. Okay, so therefore, pwede rin namang sabihin na 66.2% ang nagsasabi na okay lang ang adults na nagsasabing okay lang mag-check ng personal email at work. Okay? So, for confidence interval, for population proportion, same lang naman siya, P hat minus E, where your E is, ito ang formula. Okay, JC is equal to square root of P hat Q hat over N. Okay? So, in summary, ito yung steps na ika-conduct ninyo. So, please take note of this one. So, i-recheck nyo lang kung greater than or equal to 5 siya para ma-approximate nyo ang normal distribution. Find the critical value using the standard normal table. Okay, and the margin of error, and then the left and right endpoints. Supposing we have this example. So, in a survey of 1,000 adults, 662 said, yung pa rin pala yun, yung kanina. Okay, so kanina na-identify na natin yan. So, our P hat is actually 0.662, and your Q hat is 1 minus 0.662, which is equal to 0.338. Okay, so we have identified our P hat, Q hat. So next, ang sabi daw, construct a 95% confidence interval. So before we proceed, let's recheck lang. Baka mamaya ay hindi siya pasok for normal distribution. So NP at saka, sinikita. NP at saka NQ. Recheck lang natin. Okay, so NP ay 1,000 times 0.662 tsaka 1,000 times 0.338. 662 tsaka 338. Calculator pa. Okay, ayan. So, okay naman. So, pareha naman silang greater than 5. So, okay lang. So, we can approximate that this is actually a normal distribution. So, next, compute natin yung margin of error. Okay, ang formula ng margin of error, yung nakita natin kanina, so that would be E is equal to JC square root of P hat Q hat over N. Okay, so, where our Z, ano yung Z natin? Sabi daw, 95%. Confidence level. Okay, so pag chinart nyo, 95.95. Okay, dahil Z ulito, balik tayo dun sa mga basic. Yung sa uluhan kanina. Okay, di ba pagka ganyan na 0.025, 0.95, ang natitira ay 0.05 divided by 2, 0.025. So, pag 0.025, ang inyong area to the left, okay, ang value ng Z nyo ay negative 1.96. So, para sa hindi nakakatanda, you can recheck that using your table. So, that's 1.96 square root of P hat Q hat 0.662 times 0.338 over N. N ay 1,000. Okay, so calculator ko na dito manual. 1.96 times square root of 0.662 times 0.338 over 1,000. 0.0293. 0.0293 ang value ng E. Okay, so therefore, we can now check the confidence interval. Okay, so since ang mean natin, ano ang mean natin kanina? So, hindi pala siya mean, siya ay proportion, walang mean. Okay, so proportion ang gagamitin natin. So, sa left endpoint, ang sabi ay P hat minus E. Okay, tapos sa right, hanap ng, ng mean. Okay, so P hat, so ang P hat natin ay 0.662 minus E na 0.0293. Tapos dito naman sa kabila ay 0.662 plus 0.0293. 0.6327. Okay, and 0.6913. Okay, so we can say that at 95, okay, at 95% confidence, hindi ko na isusulat pero supposedly, sulat mo siya. At 95% confidence, sige na, sulat ko na. Okay, so your population proportion for US adults who say that it is acceptable to read email while at work is in between 63.27% and 69.13%. So normally, pag proportion na yung pinag-iisapan, automatically we are converting that in terms of interpretation, we're converting that automatically to percentage kasi proportion niya ang pinag-uusapan. Okay? So, again, that's how you solve for proportion. It's almost the same, different lang yung formula ng kanyang E. Okay, at ang ginagamit lang dun sa interval ay yung p-hat. Okay, sample size. Supposing naman, sample size. Okay, so actually hindi nyo kailangan masyadong sauluhin yung sample size formula kasi 18-week na formula lang yun ng eto. So, inikot lang yan, nilipat lang yung n dito. Okay, so ganun din yung sa iba, yung sa previous slides. So na siya. Ayan, okay. So, if in case hinahanap niyo yung n, so ito yung magiging formula. Or you can actually derive it from the original formula nung E value. Okay? So, if in case po hindi given si P hat at saka si Q hat, automatically po we assume that the P hat is 0.5. So, syempre yung Q hat, 0.5. Okay? Or 50-50 yung chance. Kung sakali pong hindi given yung probability of success. So, halimbawa ito, you're running a political campaign wish to estimate with 95% confidence the population proportion of registered voters who will vote for your candidate. Your estimate must be within 3% of the true population proportion. Find the minimum sample size needed if no preliminary estimate is available. So, since walang preliminary estimate, ang kasasabi-sabi lang, your P hat is equal to 0.5 and your Q hat is equal to 0.5. Okay, so let's try to solve for the n. Okay? Trying to solve for the n, ano yung formula na ginamit natin kanina? We have, oops. Ay, medyo nag-hang. Sorry. Okay, so we have n is equal to PQ, P hat, Q hat, okay, multiplied by JC over E squared, if I remember it right. Okay, so let's recheck. Okay. So P hat Q hat 0.5 times 0.5 times JC. Anong JC? 95. So 95 0.025. So that's 1.96. Okay, 1.96 over E. E 3%. Within 3%. Okay, that's 0.03 squared. Okay, using the calculator, that's 1067.11. Okay, so rounding up to the nearest, so dapat syempre mag-survey kayo ng 1068. Okay? Yung sa surveyan nyo. Survey people. Basta 1068 yung sa surveyan nyo na tao. Kung gusto nyo na maging 95% confident sa inyong study. Okay, what if ito naman? So, ito may given a preliminary estimate. So, 0.31. So, syempre, kukunin nyo lang yung p-hat. Ayan yung p-hat. Yung q-hat ay, what? Q-hat. 1 minus 0.31 ay, para lang sure, 0.69. So, same process ng ginawa natin kanina. So, kukompute nyo lang uli yung p-hat, q-hat, times, okay. So, that's, n is equal to 0.31 times 0.69, tapos, multiplied by 1.96, 0.03, oops, 3 squared, and 913.02. Or nearly, kailangan nyo mag-survey ng, syempre may 0.02. So, it's safe to say na kailangan nyo mag-survey ng 914. Okay? You have to survey 914 voters. Okay? Para makakuha ng 95% confidence level with preliminary estimates of 0.31 and negative of 0.69. Okay, so in summary, that's how you would get for the confidence interval for the proportion. Hope it's the last. I know it's the last. Okay, this is the confidence interval for variance and standard deviation. So, in here, ang gagamitin naman natin is si chi-squared distribution. Okay, so medyo same lang din naman, ibang table lang uli ang gagamitin. Okay, so first off, point estimate for standard population variance is the sample variance, and the point estimate for the population standard deviation is the sample standard deviation. So you can use chi-square distribution to construct the confidence interval for variance and standard deviation with the formula chi-squared. It's not x squared, chi. Capital X siya na slant na naka-inclined. Chi-squared is equal to n minus 1 multiplied by the sample standard deviation over the population. Multiplied by the variance, sample variance over the population variance. So, forms a chi-square distribution for samples for any size and greater than 1. Properties ng chi-square distribution, all chi-squared values are greater than or equal to 0. So, ibig sabihin wala po kayong makikitang negative na value. Okay, the chi-square distribution is a family of curves, each determined by the degrees of freedom to form a confidence interval for the variance population. Use the chi-square distribution with degrees of freedom equal to 1 less the sample. So, the area under each curve of chi-square distribution is equal to 1. So, ito yung itsura ng chi-square distribution. So, again, everything's greater than 1 and it is positively skewed. Okay? Or hindi siya normally distributed. Positively skewed, ibig sabihin, nandito yung kanyang bells. Okay. So critical values for chi-squared. There are two critical values for each level of confidence. We have chi-squared right and chi-squared left. So you would be getting them. Okay. Yung chi-squared right nyo ay 1 minus c. I'm sorry. Chi-squared right, yung chi-squared right ninyo, sorry, dito yung right. Yung chi-squared right ay 1 minus c at saka chi-squared left 1 plus c. Okay? So, magpa-practice naman natin siya using the example. Okay, so testing natin this one. So, medyo nawala lang yung chi. Sorry. This is chi and this is chi. Okay. First off, degrees of freedom, identify natin. So, find the critical values for chi-squared r and chi-squared left for 95% confidence interval when sample size is 18. Okay, so first off, pa-identify ako ng degrees of freedom. So, n minus 1, that would be 18 minus 1, 17. Okay? So, we have to get the chi-squared r by means of this confidence level. Okay? So, area to the right, okay, of chi-squared r is equal to your area to the right of your chi-squared r is equal to 1 minus c over 2. Okay, lagay natin ha. Chi-squared right is 1 minus c over 2. Okay, and then chi-squared left is equal to 1 plus c over 2. Okay, so let's check. That's 1 minus 0.95 over 2 and 1 plus 0.95 over 2. Okay, I'll just 0.025 and this one is 0.975. Okay, so these are your chi-squared r and chi-squared left for the following. Okay, so next, let's try to find the critical values using the table. Okay, so we have here the table. Let's just go to the table of chi-squared. 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 Okay, so what we'll do is just to get the values. Okay, balik tayo dun sa na-solve natin. We're looking for 0.975, 17, at saka 0.025, 17. Okay, so para mas sure, okay, puntahan na natin si 17. 17 has all these values. Okay, so we have here the first one, si chi-squared right, 0.025 ang taas niya. 0.025, 17, 30.191. Okay? That's 30.191. Tapos, yung kabila naman, 0.975, 17, 7.564 ang kanyang values. Okay, so lagay lang natin siya here. So that would be for chi-squared r, 30.191. Oops, okay. And chi-squared left is 7.564. Okay, so those are the critical values for 95% confidence level with degrees of freedom of 70. Okay, so next. So, since alam na natin yung value ng chi-squared r and chi-squared left, we can now solve for the value of our confidence interval. So, for the confidence interval for chi-squared, for your standard deviation, variance, we have n minus 1 multiplied by your sample standard deviation, sample variance over chi-squared r chi-squared R muna bago ko chi-squared left yung sa kabila. So, makikita nyo naman yan kasi, syempre, mas maliit dapat yung nandito kaysa dito. Okay? So, again, dito, chi-squared R ang i-inject. Dito ay chi-squared left. And when you're talking about chi-squared R, that's minus C. Okay? So, solve natin siya. So, please note that you need not to memorize the formula for the confidence interval for the standard deviation kasi it's just the same with the interval for the variance except that it has square root. Okay, so but it's generally the same. So you can just memorize the formula up. So let's try it on this example. So before that, here's the summary. So verify that the population has a standard deviation. Identify the degrees of freedom. After identifying the degrees of freedom, you have to get the point estimate S. Okay, and then find the critical value chi-squared R and chi-squared left using the table. And then find the left and right endpoints for the confidence interval for the population variance. And square it nyo lang for the standard deviation. Okay, so we have here this formula, this problem. Okay, so supposing we randomly select and weigh 30 samples of an allergy medicine, the sample standard deviation is 1.2. I would have to get the given na. Okay, so first off, we have n is equal to 30. So therefore, the degrees of freedom is equal to 30 minus 1. That's 29. Okay, next. Sample standard deviation. Sample standard deviation is 1.2. Okay, 1.2 sample standard deviation. Okay, sample standard deviation ay is 1.2. Okay, milligrams. So, assuming the weights are normally distributed, construct a 99% confidence interval for the population variance in the sample standard deviation. So, we're looking at confidence of 0.99. Okay? So, we can get dito ko na ilalagay yung chi-squared R ha. Okay? So, that's chi-squared R, 1 minus 0.99 over 2, and chi-squared left, bakit nasa baba? Baliktad. Okay. Chi-squared left is equal to 1 plus 0.99 over 2. Okay, so that would be 1 minus 0. Over 2. That would be 0.005. Okay, and then plus 0.995. Okay. So we have now our values for the chi-squared R and chi-squared left with degrees of freedom of 29. We can now shift to our table. Okay, chi-squared. So we're looking at 29. Okay, 29. So let's check 29. 29. There's 29. May line is here. Okay. And then, we're looking at 0.995 for the chi-squared left. 0.995, 29, 13, 0.995. 13.121. I would have to indicate 13.121. And lalagay ko na siya dun sa table natin habang tinitingnan nyo yung lalagay ko na siya dun sa solution habang tinitingnan nyo yung table. And 0.005. 0.005 up, that's the extreme. So, 52.336. So, I'll get you back with our solution. Ayan, nilagay ko na siya in here sa taas. Okay? So, para guided na tayo. So, hindi tayo babalik-balik doon sa ating file. Okay, so since alam na natin, pwede na natin makompute yung ating confidence interval for the variance. Okay, so formula would be sa kabilang side, the left, n minus 1 sample variance. Okay, then chi squared r, sorry sanay. Okay, and then variance. Okay, and then kabila naman ay n plus 1. Okay, guys. Chi squared. Okay, so lagay natin siya. So we have here n minus 1 ay, lagyan na natin yung 29 diretso. 29 is ay 1.2 times squared xr ay 52.336 29 1.2 squared over left na 13.121. Okay, so that's 29 times 1.2 squared, 52.336. Teka lang, dapat pala ito ay 31. Bakit same na yung ginawa ko? 31. Tama ba? Hindi n minus 1 yun, tama. Bakit n plus 1? N minus 1 pa din yun. 29, tas ang nag-iba yung left. Okay, so yun. 52.336, we have 0.79, 0.79, 79. Okay, and then, palitan lang natin yung ilalim ng 13.121. 3.1827. Okay, so this is milligram as well. Okay, so ito yung variance. Okay, variance interval ninyo. For the standard deviation, square root lang natin to. Okay, square root nito, square root of your square root nyo lang siya. So, you would be getting, square root ko lang itong nasa kabilang side, kasi ito yung nasa akin. 1.7840. Tapos, yung kabila ay 0.7979 square root of 0.8933. Okay, so, yan yung value. Okay, so I hope you got it. Okay, because that would be the last. Okay, for questions and clarifications, I would be very happy to address your questions in our teams. Just message me. Okay, thank you po.